the teachers. This is a phenomena or a process which we experience day in and day out. And this is the core activity which consumes most of our waking time. But as a teacher, this plays very important role because the research which has been carried out in the field of communication clearly indicates that higher the effectiveness of communication on the part of the teacher, greater are the chances that instructional objectives will be achieved. Communication forms integral part of whether you are in class, you are in the laboratory, you are in the workshop, or you are guiding your students for the project work, or you are trying to interact with them in your office or outside the office. So every activity of human being has an element of communication, and that's why many of us do not pay any attention to this process because we think from the childhood we have been into the process of communication and we don't face any problems. But when we talk in terms of communication, you can have brilliant ideas, but if you are not able to express them, then ideas don't get you anywhere. So that is the importance. You may have the knowledge, you may have the ideas, but what is important is ability to express those ideas either in writing or orally. And it has also been remarked, you cannot not communicate. That means whether you intend to communicate or you do not intend to communicate, you always communicate to the outside world. May I ask from the audience, do you agree with the statement that you always communicate? Yes? Any response from the audience? Yes, any one of the participants, if would like to respond to, do you agree with the statement? If yes, why? Hello? May I request Dronacharya Group of Institutions? Hello? Are you able to listen to me? Okay, can I request Shahid Udham Singh College of Engineering and Technology? Do you agree with me that you always communicate? If yes, why? Yes. Hello.
There's some issue from outside. Your voice is not coming. We are troubleshooting.
Hear you clearly. Hello. Which center is? Please kindly let me know the center name of the center. IMS. Your voice is not audible.
Hello, Jesus.
Anji JSS. Please continue.
I'm communicating.
Yeah, I have. You can read the statement. You cannot not
Communicate, share our views, share information.
But the question was, do you agree with the statement you always communicate? If yes, why?
And actually, we always communicate. So,
Yes.
life is, I think our life is not possible.
I would request the centers, please, if you want to speak, please let me know that you are from which center so that others don't disturb. Now, friends, let me continue. By the time you are settling down, I am not able to hear you. The statement says you always communicate. Whether you intend or you do not intend, you communicate to the outside world. And this is true because even if you do not speak, your facial expression, your gestures, your hand movements, your body movements, your posture, they convey a lot of information to the outside world. When a child is speaking, the parents can make out whether the child is comfortable or not, whether the child is relaxed or not, whether the child requires a blanket or AC. So how? Because the facial expression indicates the state of mind or the state of thoughts which are going on in the mind of the person, even when he or she is not speaking. So even the dress which you are wearing, that is indicative of your interest. So what colors do you prefer to wear? That is indicated by the color of the dress you are wearing. Now we as human beings spend almost 80% of our waking time on communication. And there are a number of situations where we use this particular skill and we communicate one to one, we communicate in small groups, or there may be certain instances where we have to speak or communicate to large groups. And in today's classroom, this is the scenario where we have more than 30 students. So anything which is more than 30 can be labeled as a large group statistically. So we are communicating in diverse situations. We may not be equally proficient when we have to communicate one-to-one or small group or large group. Some people may be very, very comfortable when they have to speak one-to-one. Others may be equally comfortable when they have to speak one-to-one and small group. And teachers are expected to be very, very efficient in communicating to large groups. But this may or may not be true. We talk to known people, friends, and sometimes we have to speak to the unknown people, the strangers. And it is rather difficult to speak to the strangers than to the known people or the friends. And it also depends upon the messages which we communicate. Sometimes we do exchange pleasant messages. Other time we exchange unpleasant messages. And you'll agree again, it is easy to send or give a pleasant message rather than an unpleasant message. You fumble, you look for words, you take long pauses when you have to communicate an unpleasant message. So a lot of inhibition is there on the part of the communicator to communicate unpleasant message. This is true with most of the people. At workplace, we communicate to our superiors, colleagues, and subordinates. And again, the higher the difference between the person who is speaking and the other person, if there is a lot of social status difference, that is, either you enjoy a higher level status or the other person enjoys a higher level status, your communication gets affected. Talking to a colleague is much easier than talking to the vice chancellor of a university. So this is one of the examples, and I have few, like when we talk in terms of life, you come across number of people who communicate in diverse situations. So here, when you're looking at, I have few video clips where you will have the glimpses, just to give you the glimpses that there are people in different walks of life and they communicate. Now here, you can listen to some of, like the politician. It is a speech by Hitler. So just view for a fraction of seconds or a minute. ये चलता नहीं है जी बच्चों क्यों है एडमिशन के तो पेपर नहीं आवाज कितने आवाज ऊंची करती नहीं ये नहीं है एटीट्यूड वो कितने गया हाँ यही है हाँ जी ऊंची करना आवाज है तो वॉल्यूम ऊंची कर ਇਹਨੂੰ ਬੰਦ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਤਾਂ ਚੱਲੂਗਾ ਕਿਤੇ
I don't want to be part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution. You know, it starts with wrong. That big problem we need you to have. It's happening on college campuses, at bars, at parties, even in high schools.
वो दिखा रहे हैं
The friend. It's called sexual assault, and it has to stop. You really have to stop it. So listen.
Now you just have a look at another very good orator, the president.
Just cry.
I believe they are. I have fallen enough. I believe in the right of the people to it. I believe that the majority of the brave people of the United States will day in and day out make pure mistakes in governing themselves. That any smaller class or body of men, no matter what their trade, will make it trying to govern. I believe again that the American people are as a whole capable of self-control and of learning by their mistakes.
Have a quick look.
Often criticized for his caution is now doing things his own way. He's got a climate deal with China. He's issued an immigration order. We'll see how far he can take it.
एक ऐसे बोल दो कि नहीं वॉच लाइट चलेगा स्टार्ट तो हो नहीं गया अगे कितने कितने
threats, negotiating with Iran, all while finding time to pray 5 times a day. Which is strenuous. And it is no wonder that people keep pointing out how the presidency has aged. I look so old, John Boehner's already invited Netanyahu to speak at my funeral.
Now, friends, you have a few glimpses of the politicians who have been giving speeches. Now, just have a look at the news readers. Like, I have one of the Pranay Roy.
To preserve nature that way. To dream to fly high. To add a little spice. To see the world in a different light. To accept yourself. To dare to do it. To work hard.
चंदा क्यों नहीं तो बोल दो ही नहीं तो कुछ और ही बोलने लग चंदा
Dot and Ross. Dot is the essence of FDT. The essence of just one word. Just.
ये आ गया ना प्रणय रॉय
President, sir. All our friends here. A couple of days ago, I asked Radhika, the founder of FDT, I joined her competition.
Yeah, thank you all for being here.
What's the
Very
thing
special
you've been doing for
ceremony.
25 years? Hard work. Look at me with this guy. Technology
passion, money, what is it? She just said one word, trust. Your trust. And I'm here tonight on behalf of everybody at NDTV to thank every single one of you for your trust in us. But first, a quick secret. When I was first asked to speak, I said, like, no, not really. But guess what? I'm here. How come?
You can see for yourself the difference, how good orator is Pranay Roy. Now you have a look at another person, Derek O'Brien, who is the quiz master, and he has been organizing quizzes with the Born Vita.
This is a big one. We started off with 3,500 schools who came to us from about 100 cities. Each city then had a champion. From those champions, we got 16 of those top teams into a studio. And now, we're down to the top 2 who are playing the grand final of the...
Have a look at the teachers who have been speaking, and you have NAPTEL as one of the sources where the recorded lectures of the various professors are available.
Good morning. No, not this way. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to this course in Better Spoken English. Do you know why we say good morning? What is the full form of good morning? Anybody, please? Raise your hand. What is the full form? Good morning comes at the end of the sentence. What is the sentence? The full sentence. Anybody? Yes, please. I wish you a good morning. Thank you very much. What's your name?
Now friends, another one, have a quick look at another video by another professor who has been speaking on Professor A. Ramesh.
Welcome to the course on 3G and 4G wireless mobile communications. So the title of the course that we are going to talk about is 3G and 4G wireless mobile communication systems. Wireless communication systems have become an integral part of our lives, especially during the last decade. 3G stands.
Now friends, if you can have a look at this, just a last clip which I have for all of you is with okay. So maybe that has not been copied the full address. You will agree with me that there are certain differences when different people communicate. Some are very proficient, others are not. And this is true when we try to analyze how the communication is taking place in our technical institutions. Despite the fact that the teachers, they are masters of their own subject area, the discipline, they have the knowledge of, say, their own discipline specialization, but many a times we fail to express ourselves clearly to our students, and the learning which should result on account of our communication, that doesn't take place. So what is where we have to focus is that we have to think of, I'm skipping some of the things, that to be good orator, what we require as a good communicator, there are 4 basic skills which are needed. That is, one ought to be a good speaker, a good listener, a good reader, and good writer. And these are 4 communication skills which need to be possessed by all the teachers. When you are in the class, you are in the lab, you are in the workshop, you are at most of the time speaking. When the student is posing a question, student wants to clarify a doubt. When students supplement the information, you ought to listen to the students. When students are involved in group discussion or seminars, you are listening to them. Before you go to the class, you are supposed to read, and you are supposed to read various sources of information which are related to your discipline and to the subject which you are teaching. Writing comes into play when you are preparing brief notes for your students, you are writing assignments, you are writing on the board, you are taking notes somewhere, or you are trying to prepare your PowerPoint presentations, you are trying to write main ideas, you are writing the definitions and so on. So writing comes into play. So all these 4 basic skills are required by the teachers to be effective communicators. And the time which we spend in our day-to-day life on these 4 skills, there is a myth. Many of us believe that we speak more, but in reality, you listen more. And the research in the area has clearly indicated that most of your waking time goes to listening rather than speaking. And as far as reading and writing are concerned, they consume 10% and 9% of your waking time respectively. But this will depend upon the activity you perform. If you are in the class and you are using a lecture method, most of the time you will be speaking. So most of your time in the class would go to speaking. But think, if you are using a group discussion in the classroom, then most of the time you'll be listening to your students and you'll not be speaking. A student involved in brainstorming session, again, listening will be more prominent on the part of the teacher, and speaking will be the major activity on the part of the students. And then when it comes to reading, when you ask the student to get involved in a case study method, they are reading those cases. Maybe if you have planned a session where you are giving about 10 to 15 page case, which is in itself a complete scenario of what happened in the industry, then student may be involved in reading more in the classroom situation itself. And you as a teacher would be involved in listening and then guiding. So speaking will be reduced to a considerable extent. Or when you are giving independent reading assignment to your students, they are involved in reading. So writing comes into play when you ask the student to do the solution of the problems, maybe write an essay, maybe explain the factors that contribute to the transmission losses and so on. So as a teacher or as a student, the activity in which you are involved, that will determine how much time would you spend on each one of these activities. But in general, this is the kind of distribution of time we devote to listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And if I just take you back to the school days, then you will agree with me that at school level we were trained in reading and writing, and then came the speaking, but no focus was given to improving or honing the skills of listening, which are very, very important. A good listener can become a good speaker, right? So in this context, I'll be focusing only on 2 of the skills, that is oral communication skills. May I know from the audience what would you include in oral communication skills? Anybody who would like to respond? Which skills would you include under oral communication skills? Yes. Any answers? May I request IMS to speak on? What would you include under oral communication skills? Am I likely to get a response? Yeah. Two. Which two? उधरों बोल नहीं रहे. Anybody else from Dronacharya Group of Institution or Shaheed Udham Singh College? No. So when we talk in terms of oral communication skills, two of the skills are important. That is oral communication.
माइक ऑफ कर देता
तो माइक ऑफ करने लिए मेरे मैंने बहुत डिस्टर्ब. Speaking and listening. So friends, the structure of my presentation would be, before I go and deal with the principles of effective speaking and listening, I would first like to touch upon the concept of communication so as to enable us to be on the same platform when we say or use the word communication. Then we'll talk about the principles of effective speaking, and lastly deal with principles of effective listening. Just to clarify the concept of communication, my question to the audience is, who's the mother? I need a reply from the centers. So kindly speak, who's the mother? जब बैठे बैठे बोल दीजिए, मुझे आवाज आ रही है आपकी. जी मैम. Audience, आपको क्या हो गया आज? No, there is no audio from your side.
IMS College.
JSS Academy. Can I get a response to my question, please? Yes, JSS Academy.
Hello.
Anji, who's the mother?
Yeah, my mother is the first person from whom we learn to speak.
Okay, we learn to speak. Any other member who would like to respond to this question?
Ma'am, mother nourishes us with love and mother is our first teacher.
Okay. My question still remains there. Who is the mother?
Mother is our first communicator.
Okay. What else? So friends, the connotations which you are trying to give me include some of these responses. Mother is loving, caring, affectionate, first teacher, a person who understands the child without anything, and nurturing. All these connotations which are given, they are based upon your experience with that kind of a person. Most of us have positive experience with our mothers. That's why all positive things are reflected. But if I go by the dictionary meaning of the word, mother is a person who gives birth to a child. And that means you have two meanings of any word, one based upon your experience, another is the standard dictionary meaning. In other words, when we talk in terms of communication, any word which we use has two meanings. One, the dictionary meaning referred to as denotative meaning, the other, the connotative meaning based upon our experience. So communication, when we say it is transfer of message, my question to the audience is transfer. I deliver a lecture, I have transferred the information. But this transfer is not complete unless and until there is sharing of meanings of those words which I have used. If the receiver is able to interpret the message in the same manner as intended by the sender of the message, then communication is complete, and this is primarily sharing of meanings. So the exact connotation is sharing of meanings. Now we come on to that words have no meaning, people have meaning. Now this is that everybody tries to interpret the incoming information with a state of mind or a reference. It is with reference to the previous experiences the person has. So everybody tries to give different meaning to the incoming information. So that's why it is said, words have no meaning, people have meaning. Let me take an example, another example, say boss. The literal meaning of the boss is the immediate superior. But a person who has all the positive connotations attached to the boss would interpret it in a positive manner. But a person who has all the negative experiences would always try to associate all negative meanings to the word boss. So, but boss simply means immediate superior. So you try to interpret words in the frame of reference of your past experiences. And it has also been said that people speak with the vocal organs but communicate with the whole body. When you are in a communication situation, it is not only the words which you speak, but it is your facial expression, your body movements, your gestures, your eye contact, your rate of delivery, which together gets interpreted and the meaning is derived by the listener or by the audience. And the effectiveness of your communication is gauged, or it is impacted, I would say, by the words up to 7%. What kind of words you use, they had impact on the effectiveness up to 7%. Your tonal quality, what you say, how you say it, has a greater impact on the effectiveness, and it is up to 38%. Now, say for example, you are receiving a person in your room and you are asking him or her to sit down. One is sit down, another is sit down. You can see the difference. You have not changed the words, but your tonal quality which you have utilized, one was a polite request, a welcome request to occupy a seat. Another is very authoritarian tonal quality which you have used. So unnecessarily, you are utilizing your authority to ask the person to take a seat. This happens. We want to say the same thing, but our tone which we use to convey that message makes the host of difference. Your nonverbal behavior has impact on effectiveness up to 55%. Now, you want to say well done. One is well done, another is well done. You have not seen the person to whom you want to compliment. The effect will be undesirable on the person to whom you are saying well done. So even a small eye contact which is lost has an effect on your communication, and the person, your non-verbal would speak something different than the words which you are using. So in other words, you can say that verbal content of the message and the non-verbal communication, if they match, there is a congruence between the two, the effectiveness of communication will be more. And if there is a mismatch between the two, the communication will be ineffective. And these are subtle things which we need to take into consideration while we are communicating to our students in various situations. So when we talk in terms of communication, we first deal with principles of effective speaking. So I would like to know from the audience that you have listened to number of people in your life. As a student, you have listened to number of your teachers. So what you characterize as a good or effective speaking? What are some of the characteristics of effective speaking? What makes the speaking effective? So over to Shahid Uddam Singh, College of Engineering first. Let me get few responses from your side.
Hello.
Anji.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
One of the thing which I feel is important for effective speaking is clarity of voice.
Okay.
And then the next is whatever clarity of thought that what we want to communicate.
Okay, clarity of thought, fine.
What we want. Yes, what we want to communicate.
Right. मैम ऑडियो गई है आपकी.
हेलो.
हाँ जी बोलिए.
Ma'am, the clarity of thought is there, and it should be interesting also, so that we can keep the hold of the
interesting
audience also.
Not communication, but anyway, any other member would like to add to what you have said? Yes, I am able to see only 5 people sitting, 6 people. Are there only 6 people attending the program?
No, ma'am, no. There are 21 people sitting today here.
Actually, any other member?
I can show.
Okay. Any other member who would like to add to? एक आधा point तो बोलिए, please. No more point. Okay, over to Dronacharya Group of Institutions. द्रोणाचार्य इन्हों omit कर दो, कट दो इन्हों. द्रोणाचार्य किन्ने बैठे हैं? Okay, over to JSS. JSS Academy. आज क्या हो गया? आपकी पार्टिसिपेशन क्यों नहीं हो रही भाई?
हेलो.
हाँ जी. बोलिए.
Speakers should speak slowly.
Okay. Any other?
And there should be eye contact.
Eye contact. Okay.
It should be 1 to 1. It should be 1 to 1.
1 to 1. अब large group में 1 to 1 कैसे होगा? Okay. Fine. What else?
Ma'am, a friendly gesture is also desirable.
Okay, friendly gesture. Okay. इतने सारे लोग पॉइंट दोगे तो बहुत सारे आ जाएंगे. Okay, thank you very much. JSS Academy. Over to which Government Engineering College, Bikaner. Government Engineering College, Bikaner, would you like to add to the points?
Hello.
Anji.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Actually, according to effective speaking is whatever you want to deliver, it should be well delivered to the audience. It should be clear.
Clarity.
Clarity should be there, and the lecture should not be board, it should be interesting with like if we are in a class, we should give some examples so that we can create interest of the students and speaker listeners.
Thank you very much. How many participants are there at your center?
Ma'am, actually, it's for participants 35, but right now we have called for examination duties, so some of them have gone, but some have came.
Just give me the number.
36, ma'am.
नहीं अभी कितने हैं?
अभी तो 7 है.
हाँ?
7.
मैं तो फिर आपको आपके सेंटर को काट दूंगी. मैं ऐसे नहीं चलेगा. 7 and 6 doesn't make sense to me. Okay. So thank you very much for your points which you have given. Let's come to principles of effective speaking. We are trying to deal with the principles of effective speaking primarily from the teacher's point of view, and the very first principle is know thy subject. When I say know thy subject, this is a precondition to effective communication. A person who has mastery over the subject matter is able to express those ideas. And if a person lacks the knowledge of the subject matter, he or she feels deficient in explaining the terminology, relating the subject matter to other subjects, relating the discipline to the other disciplines, or the person fails to give appropriate examples in the field. And we are living in an age where changes are so rapid and knowledge is doubling every, I would say, 7 to 10 years. And you have certain disciplines where the changes are so rapid, like computer science, where the shelf value of the degrees changes so rapidly. It is less than 1 year. The knowledge becomes obsolete. So the very first principle is, if you want to communicate effectively, you must have thorough understanding, or I would say a deep understanding of the concepts, principles, theories of the subject you are dealing in the classroom situation. The second is why you want to communicate. That must be very clear to you. Now, if I'm going to a class, is it that I expect my student to simply define the terminology? Is it that I expect my student to explain in his own words? Is it that my student should be able to apply that knowledge in a new situation? Or is it that my student should be able to solve problems which are complex at a higher level? So your objectives would determine how you are going to communicate in the classroom situation. Because when you are going to communicate, you are going to make use of certain methods, certain media, and you are going to evaluate the performance of your students. And that is all dependent upon the quality, or the quality as well as the quantity of objectives you want to achieve. Now, for example, if you expect that your student will be able to write program in C++ at the end of instruction, it clearly gives you a direction that as a teacher, you need to demonstrate how to write a program in C++, and you need to give adequate practice to your students to write programs in C++. So if you choose an appropriate method of delivery and you create conducive conditions in the classroom, you remain effective and you will be able to achieve the objectives of your instruction. Let me take another example, that if you expect that your students should be able to apply the learned rules in new situation, then maybe you are trying to give the demonstration how this rule is applicable in different situations in day-to-day life and the world of work, or you are trying to give examples exemplifying the application of that rule. So your explanation, your method, your media, your evaluation is dependent upon the objectives. So a person who is trying to communicate must be clear why he or she wants to communicate this message to the other person. Even otherwise, if you look, sometimes we communicate only to inform people. Other times we want to communicate to give instruction as we are doing as teacher. And thirdly, we try to communicate to motivate the person. And it has been said that if you really want to motivate others, you need to be motivated yourself. And if there is lack of motivation, lack of enthusiasm in the way you speak, then you will not be able to motivate your students for that particular subject. So depending upon whether it is information, instruction, or motivation, even your tonal quality would change. And you have seen that political leaders, when they speak to audience, there's lot of enthusiasm, lot of emotions in their voice. And you can feel those feelings which the leader is carrying. And a leader is effective when he is able to have more of emotionally laden speeches. They have more effect on the audience. But as a teacher, my purpose is to instruct and to motivate the student for further learning, for independent learning, so that he tries to have independent learning in the subject. So maybe I need to be motivated, I need to be enthusiastic about my teaching of the subject. At the same time, I have the mastery over the subject. Then communication would remain effective. The third principle is know thy audience. Now the students who are coming to you, they differ with respect to their age, interest they bring to the classroom, the kind of learning styles. Now, broadly, you can classify the students into three, that either they are auditory learners, when they listen to someone, they are able to learn, or they are visual learners, when they see certain diagrams, see the illustration, see the process, see somebody giving the demonstration, they learn. There is third category of learners who are labeled as kinesthetic learners. They are the person, they learn by doing. So as a teacher, you need to have an idea what kind of learning style is there among my students, because you will have different types of students. They'll not be either auditory or visual or kinesthetic learners, but there will be students who fall in either of these three categories. So as a teacher, if you really want to be effective, you need to use variety of methods and media. You use your oral communication, you are speaking, the audio signals are received, you are satisfying the auditory learners. But at the same time, you're using a video clip, you're using the diagram, you're using the illustration, you're showing certain animation, you are showing the actual products, actual machinery, actual tools. Then you are satisfying the visual learners. And when you involve your students in doing something, maybe doing, when I say you can involve them in critical thinking, you can involve them in problem solving, you can involve them in operating a machine or handling a tool or instrument, or you can involve your student, call them to the chalkboard or the whiteboard, ask them to solve a problem. So learning by doing. So you are trying to satisfy the kinesthetic learners. And coming back to interest, if your students are interested, your job is simpler. But if your students are not interested in what you are teaching, you need to generate or arouse the interest level among the students. And that you can do by bringing novelty, by relating the subject to examples, by bringing the models, working models, the animation, simulation, video clips, and so on, or by generating activities in which the students are actively involved. So you can generate interest in the subject by adopting number of strategies, and the more interest you are able to generate, the more effective you will remain. Previous attainments. Now the connotation which is attached to learning is that learning is constructed. Each individual constructs meaning for himself or herself. This is the latest connotation in the field of learning. So every individual tries to view the new information in the light of the previously known concepts, principles, theories, etc. And that's why it is important that as a teacher, if you really want to be effective, you need to have an understanding of what previous knowledge, skills, attitude the students are bringing to the classroom. And there yesterday I have dealt with that you can give problem, you can give a small task, you can have a multiple choice test, you can pose oral questions to know what knowledge, skill, attitude the student is bringing to the classroom. And that will give you an indication of the starting point, from where to start. If there is any gap, any misconception, you first clarify, bridge that gap, and then move further. Then social context from which to which the student belongs, that should be known. Whether the student is from rural area, urban area, from very high socioeconomic status, or average or poor socioeconomic, if you have this knowledge, so while picking up examples, you'll be able to do justice. While dealing with the students, you will not make any comment which hurts his social context, which pricks him. That you will not do. So have the understanding whether your students' interest is their learning style, what kind of learning style, what knowledge, and from which context they are coming, and try to utilize this information to your advantage. So communication, when pitched to the level of the learner, would be effective, and if it is not related and appropriate to the level of the audience. Now here, when I say the language, I just pick up one example. Many times the students say, "Sir, please use mixed language. Speak in Hindi plus English." As a teacher, my role is to facilitate learning. So there is no harm if I try to explain the things in Hindi, but I use the technical terminology in English. Once the student has understood, then he'll be able to express in simple words. So my role is not to teach him English and not to focus more on English, but make him understand the concepts, principles, and processes related to the discipline, so that he is able to express in his own simple words. The message is a very important component of the communication. Message needs to be structured, organized, and for that you can use different types of organization. One of the simplest form of organizing the message, which most of us use, is topical organization. Anybody who would like to throw light on what is topical organization? Any idea? Yes, audience, anybody who would like to throw light on what is topical organization? No idea? Okay, over to another institution. Hanji Shahid Udham Singh. कभी सुना है आपने ये टॉपिकल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन वर्ड सुना है? Yes or no? Just let me know, yes or no. They need to get up and say, "Oh, okay, beta."
Hello.
Hanji, hanji. Hello. Ji.
Hello.
Ma'am, बोलिए please. Hello. Go to another college. Go to another.
I'm calling from. Hello.
Hanji, hanji.
Ma'am, I can just make a guess. From this word topical, I can sense that relating to topics.
Okay. It is related to topic. Let me.
Whatever
Thank you. Let me
sequence of
clarify.
whatever topics I want, I'll just be arranging them and then preparing our lectures according to those topics.
But somewhat right. When you say topical organization, any topic which you are going to teach in the class, it has certain headings, subheadings. Now, when I picked up this communication, I said I'll be dealing with three things: concept of communication, principles of effective speaking, and principles of effective listening. These are the three broad headings. Under each headings, there may be number of subheadings. Like principles of effective speaking, we have dealt with know thy subject, know thy objectives, know thy audience, and now we have come to the principles of organization of message. So when you divide the topic into constituent parts and then try to organize the message under headings and subheadings, this is referred to as topical organization. And majority of us as teachers use this topical organization. Any idea regarding chronological organization? Chronology किसको रेफर करती है? Chronology. Yes, you might be familiar with the term chronology. So what is chronological organization? IMS आपकी what is barrier? The question is, what do we understand by chronological organization? Sir, it is on the slide. Okay. Chronological organization.
Organization is just like when we are in the top journey, we have certain type of teams, like say board of directors, you can say, and after that there is a hierarchy for the organization according to the employee. So we have 5 or 6 members in the top hierarchy. That is the very one we have. It will be placed when we go to the top to the bottom. So the yes, the strength of the employee will be increased when we go from top to the bottom per hour. So, according to the chronological organization, is just like it will be headed by the top of the parties and will be led by the standard group of people and followed by the those bottom level.
Sir, chronological organization simply refers to the timeline of events. Now, if you are starting with the development of computers or history of computers, and you start with 19th century, 20th century, and 21st century, and you try to organize the message on the timeline, or I deal with the progress of or economic growth of India under 5-year plans. I start with first 5 years, second 5 year, third 5 year, and come to 12th 5-year plan. This is what is referred to as chronological organization. Then we have journalistic organization. Many of you must be reading a newspaper. Any news item answers number of questions: what happened, where it happened, who was involved in in the event, what were the consequences of that, how the adverse consequences could be eliminated or controlled, or what measures need to be taken to control this kind of event to recur. Now, if these questions are answered, the same journalistic organization can be utilized in some of the case studies which you use in different subjects. Like, you have a case, now you have seen in Nepal the earthquake which came. So what happened, where it happened, why it happened, how it happened, and what were the consequences of that happening, and what measures need to be taken so that this kind of calamity doesn't recur. So if you can arrange this message under these headings, it is easy that for the student to understand an event which has taken place, and then if you give this as a case study to your student, then he can probably use it as an inductive or deductive case studies. So it will depend how you organize the message. So journalistic organization can be used to share certain cases which have happened in a particular discipline. Another principle which you should keep in mind, that whenever you start delivering a message, it must be organized, and the simple things, easy things must be dealt first, and then difficult and complex things. Just picking up an example of, like, you are going from normally I take this example of differential equation. What is that? First order, second order, and higher order differential equation. So you teach first order, then go to second order, then you go to higher order. So likewise, whatever you are teaching, first deal with the easiest simple things and gradually increase the complexity of the message. Always try to organize from the known to unknown. So whatever a student already knows, that should come first, and then you should take the student to unknown things. And here, when we pick up examples in the classroom, we normally pick up example from outside India. The student has remote idea of what is happening in US, Australia, Canada, and other countries. He is more conversant with what is happening in his immediate environment. So if you really want to be effective in your communication, then always try to pick up examples from immediate context, then go to the state level, then go to the regional level, then go to the national level, then you take up examples at international level. So that will help the student to relate the phenomena, relate the processes, relate the concept to his immediate context. Always try to deal with concrete concepts first, and then go to the abstract concepts. And lastly, it is very important that when we are trying to organize the message, we try to first provide certain experience which can be observed by the student. Now, for example, yesterday I showed you an animation where the two balls were thrown from the same height and they reached the surface at the same point, and the trajectory was also the same. But the moment you change the speed of one ball, the trajectory it took was different and the time taken was different. Now this animated diagram, when you showed to your students, then you pose question why it happened or how it happened, the student will be able to think and come out with answer to that question. Now similarly, when I said dancing cans, where I just fill a can with the water and I try to rotate, it doesn't rotate. Then I empty the can, half of it is filled by the water, and then I rotate the can, it starts dancing. Now this I show to my student. He has seen and observed the phenomena that yes, first it was filled with water, now it is half with water. So what could be the possible reason why the can is dancing? If likewise potential kinetic energy, so the person has taken up two eggs. So two eggs are thrown from the same height. The impact is similar. Then he increases the height, and when it is thrown, the impact on the egg is totally different. So he is trying to explain the concept of kinetic energy, potential kinetic energy, with the help of eggs. So similar kind of examples you can think of, that how I make my student to first observe a phenomena, and then I pose questions related to why and how. This will actually enable the student to think and come out with some possible or plausible answers to your questions. And maybe those answers are right or wrong is one thing, but you have made the person to think about a phenomenon. Then keep it simple and short. The message ought to be brief, and you need to simplify it to the level that it is comprehensible to the audience. And for that matter, the use of language which is easy to understand at that level. You cannot use, or you are not there to impress them with your English or with your vocabulary. You are there to make the student understand. So make use of simple words which are easily understandable to your audience. Then whatever you say has to be grammatically correct. So say for example, if I say there is 40 teachers attending the program, झटका लगा कि नहीं? Something is wrong in this sentence. So you are stuck up at the mistake made by the teacher. So you will always be there saying, oh, she doesn't know that there are or there is. So you are all the time looking for the mistakes the person makes while delivering the talk or while delivering the message. So you will be paying more attention to the delivery component rather than the content or the message. And anything you do has to be technically correct. So I cannot use voltage for current and current for voltage, or I cannot use meter for ammeter and voltmeter. So you have to be very thorough with the subject you are teaching, and the message has to be technically correct, because whatever you are teaching, that is carried by the students for many years. And if you are wrongly teaching the person, he'll carry the wrong concepts, wrong principles. So as a teacher, develop that habit that whatever you speak has to be technically correct. So your communication would be effective. Now quickly, we'll move on to the second aspect, that is non-verbal communication. You have already given me number of points, eye contact hai, gestures hai, speech hai. So I'll be taking up these one by one. You can broadly classify the non-verbal communication into 5. Your facial expression, gestures, body postures, eye contact together is labeled as kinesics. You talk of your tonal quality, the volume, the pitch, the rhythm, articulation and pronunciation. Together they are referred to as para-language. Because you are using a language, and while you make use of a language, there is some tonal quality, there is volume, there is pitch, there is rhythm. So it is not language, but it is para-language. Then your clothing, jewelry, cosmetics, tattoos, piercing, hairstyles, everything or accessories which you carry to the classroom, that those are referred to as artifacts. And then there is always a time dimension. It is always said, this is not the right time to ask this question. This is not the right time to discuss this issue. That means there is always a right time to say certain things. So we have to take into account the time dimension, and that is referred to as chronomics. And every individual tries to have his own personal space. So there are distances which we need to maintain while interacting with other individuals, and that is what is referred to as proxemics. So how much nearness is permissible under different situations? So that refer to proxemics. So let's come to the principles. Very rightly, one person said, maintain eye contact. Now, this is very important in communication. Now, here, have a look at this figure. If you are asked to take chairs and sit back to back and speak for 1 minute, I have tried out this exercise in face-to-face contact mode, and it is very difficult for an individual to continue the communication for 1 minute if the people are new, unknown. If you know the person, you can still continue to communicate to the person. But if the person is unknown to you, you cannot communicate even for 1 minute. And when you are in the classroom situation, the students are there, and when you look at them, you are able to establish a rapport. They feel that you show concern for them. But when you go to the board and start drawing a diagram, which takes about 10 minutes, you lose the eye contact. People are engrossed in the whiteboard or the green board or the blackboard, and they forget there is a class behind. Even while you draw in pieces in phases, and while you are drawing, you explain the process side by side. That will retain the interest of your student in the diagram, and your standing posture should be such that you are able to see the class and you are able to work on the board. So even when you are using PowerPoint, I have seen number of teachers who use the stick to point out to certain things on the projected screen. You defeat the purpose of the PowerPoint, because the image goes at the back, it is above your head. You can maintain an eye contact with the class, see the diagram on the monitor, and then you can interact with your students. So never go to the projected screen to pinpoint the points which you are showing on the PowerPoints. So always try to have a distributed eye contact in the class. Sometimes address the students sitting in the first row, then in the middle of the rows, then the people who are sitting at the back. When you are trying to explain, address the people on the left, then on the right, then in the middle. So have a distributed eye contact, so everybody will be attentive, and you will be able to obtain feedback from the facial expression, from the postures the students adopt while they are listening to you. So a lot of information comes to you if you observe your students in the class. So always try to maintain eye contact. Never carry notes with you in the class, I would say, because the people take the notes, stand on the lectern stand, and then when they put the notes on the lectern stand, the whole attention is on what is written on the notes. So make it a habit that you speak spontaneously. You are prepared thoroughly for the topic you are going to deal in the class. You will see your fluency, your flexibility, your ability to give explanation, adequate explanation, relate the subject, that increases tremendously, and you become more effective when you're dealing in the class. What do you see here? What do you see? Anyone? Please answer. What do you see in the slide? क्या नजर आ रहा है? एक बोलिए, पहली फिगर क्या डिपिक्ट कर रही है? फर्स्ट फिगर क्या डिपिक्ट कर रही है? ओके, स्माइलिंग। सेकंड वाली क्या कर रही है? सेकंड, आपको नजर आ रहा है?
Hello, I am audible.
हाँ जी।
We have seen the number of participants which are listening some speeches. Just like first student should be interested in which talk, and second are not interested in talk and also carry on their work. And third is in some nervousness for because
आपने entirely different interpretation दे दी। अब जो पहला बच्चा है is a very pleasant looking. The second one is sad, gloomy. The third one is afraid of certain things. I would request the center to please stop talking. Now here, friends, these are the facial expressions, and your face is the index of your mind. What emotions are there within you, they get reflected on your facial expression. And when you communicate to the people, the first impression which they carry from your facial expression is you are pleasant. So that pleasantness is reflected on your face. If you are sad, that sadness appears. And students are wise enough to make out whether the teacher is in a happy mood, in an angry mood, in a mood not to interact with anyone, or she is now quarrelsome and going to fight with the students. So I would request, try to control your facial expression. You may have something happened outside in the department, at home or otherwise. Never carry those emotions to your class. Try to relax. Try to have a very pleasant look so that you invite your students to interact. You invite feedback from your students, and they feel that teacher is welcoming rather than teacher is a person who need not be disturbed. So control. But I would also say, if you're angry with your student on some issue, then your facial expression should match what words you are using. Then anger must be reflected on your facial expression. So ये नहीं होना चाहिए कि there is mismatch between your words and your facial expression. So if you are happy, happiness is there. If you are angry, that anger is reflected. And if something serious has happened and you are a little bit sad and you want to share that sadness with the class, then appropriate facial expression has to be there. Here you see that gestures, they lend support to what you say. Now if I say small, automatically my hand goes like this, small. If I want to say large, my hand goes like this. I say distant, and my hand flows like this. If I say in the sky, so my finger points out to the sky. If I say look here, I want to point out to something on the table, I give direction to the eyes of my students. I say turn towards right, I say turn towards your left. So my hands give direction. Now there is visual imagery that gets created in the mind of the person who is listening to you. He may forget whether the person said right or left, but the gestures, the direction which you gave with your hand, that remains alive in the mind of the person. So he or she will be able to recall that information quickly. So whenever you are dealing with the subject, dealing with the topic, use your normal gestures. I would say control yourself, don't impose gestures on you. But if you are in the habit of using your gestures, use normal gestures. That will give, will have more impact on the students, and your communication will be more effective. Avoid these gestures, because when you put your hands in the jacket or the coat, or you close your arms on your chest, these are symbols of closed communication. Closed means you don't invite any feedback, you don't want to listen to others. Whatever you have said is final. No, don't ever approach a communication situation like this. Always try to keep your arms open on your sides, so that it appears that you welcome interaction, you welcome feedback from the audience, and then students or the audience would be interacting with you. Posture plays an important role. Always try to remain stand erect. Why? Because this is a symbol of dynamism and enthusiasm. अगर आप ही अपने सब्जेक्ट को पढ़ाने के लिए enthusiastic नहीं हो, and your posture is like you लटक जाते हो, आप खड़े होते हो जब lectern stand पे, so you are not adopting this erect posture. So it shows that you are either tired, you are lazy, you are not disinterested in teaching. So people take that attitude. वो भी lazy हो जाते हैं. So always try to be alert and adopt erect posture. Never occupy a chair. Stand, teach, and have some movement in the class, so that you can have close interaction with different students. Be audible. Audibility is very important. So if there are 10 students, you should be audible to 10. If there are 20, audible to 20. If there are 80 students, you should remain audible to 80. There may be many of my friends whose voice is not audible to 80. So use public address system. You have now wireless mics. So carry one and use that if you really want to remain audible. Check your articulation and pronunciation. Many simple words are mispronounced by us. Now this is a word generally. People say journally. R comes before N. कभी आप इसको note कीजिएगा. Most of us, when use the word, we say journally rather than generally. People say mispronunciation. It is not pronunciation. It is mispronunciation. So one R is silent, hierarchy. We say hierarchy, etc. Now this is a noun, but again there are two different pronunciations used, Linux and Linux. So one has to be sure whether it is Linux or it is Linux. You always use this word Boolean and algebra, but people say Boolean. Rapid. No, it is not rapid, it is repo. T is silent. So there are many words which we use and there is mispronunciation. So even the technical words of the discipline, they are mispronounced by the people. So make sure that the pronunciation is correct, and the correct pronunciation, that means your communication will be effective. Check your rate of delivery. My friend said it has to be slow. Slow, I would say, if you're dealing with complex things, difficult things, you ought to be slow. If you're dealing with simple things, you can be little faster. The speed which a teacher can use is between 90 words per minute to 110 words per minute. Vary your pitch. So always try to bring in some change in your pitch. When you start a sentence, the pitch is low. When you are in the middle of the sentence, the pitch is highest. And when you are closing down the sentence, the pitch drops down. So maintain that rhythm. And when there is rhythm, people will be alert. They'll be able to pay attention. If you go on speaking at one pitch, we are here to discuss the communication, and communication is sharing of meaning. It is of three types: interpersonal, intrapersonal, personal. If I go on speaking like this, it will be very monotonous and boring for the audience to pay attention to. So think in terms of the pitch. And when you are speaking, most of the time it should look like that you are talking one to one. You are not teaching, but you are talking one to one. You can whisper, you can yell, you can be soft, you can use conversational mode, and you can be loud. So try to avoid whispering and yelling. Remain within being soft to loud. When the student is in difficulty, in problem, is unable to understand, remain soft. If the number of audience is large, be little loud. If you want to assert, little louder. But otherwise, most of the time, it has to be as if you are talking one to one. That is, you are using conversational mode. Then use pauses. Best example is Roko mat jane do, Roko mat jane do. So whenever you speak English also, the pause which you take can change the meaning of the sentence. So make sure that you take appropriate pause to convey the right meaning to your student. And here your dress. Try to dress formally so that it is according to the situation. I cannot go to the class like this. I'm not going for a modeling assignment. So I cannot go to the class with all the fingers having one ring, where the student pay more attention to my rings rather than my message. And very important, when you have assigned tasks to your students, don't go so near to them that they become conscious. So maintain a minimum distance of 2 feet so that they feel comfortable, so you don't encroach upon the personal space of the students. So friends, I think I'll omit some of these things. I would say avoid verbal virus. When I say verbal virus is the most frequently used phrases which have no potential meaning in your communication. So when I say okay, I said I met you, okay? We discussed certain issues on that day, okay? But we couldn't reach any conclusion, okay? So at the end of every sentence, I'm putting okay, which has no meaning. And it is very distracting for the audience. So sometimes we use say na takiya kalam. So ye teacher ka takiya kalam ban jata hai. So always try to identify if you have any kind of verbal virus that needs to be eliminated from the cognitive repertoire. So the more fluency is there in your speech, the more effective you will appear to your audience. So avoid use of words and phrases which have no meaning. Silence. Kabhi kabhi in the class, you need to maintain silence. Maybe you are going to share something very important, a fraction of second silence. There is something very serious, a fraction of second of silence. Something very untoward incident has happened, a fraction of silence. will help you. So maybe if you are so angry and there is silence on your part, you will cool down and you'll be calm and relaxed within a minute. So adopt the use of silence to your advantage when you're communicating, and I would say be friendly and use obtain and provide feedback. This is very, very important for you. I think time doesn't permit me to continue with this session because we have 11:30 another expert coming on. So I'll stop here. Though I said I'll be dealing with principles of effective speaking and listening, but I think I'll stop at this point. If you have any quick one or two questions, I'll be here to take up.